What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. I've been gone for 2 weeks now because I missed last week's episode because I was in Costa Rica, but now I am back. This episode was a little bit questionable. I didn't know if I was going to do this week's episode because my voice sounded like a dying frog for the last 4 days. So we are better now. My voice sounds fine, I think, and so we have a lot to talk about. Let's just say over the last 2 weeks for the Washington Commanders. We've got official bids being placed on the Washington Commanders by two different groups. We've got Jerry Jones making some comments about the team and about the Mary Jo White investigation, multiple top 30 visits by a ton of upcoming NFL draft prospects that the Commanders have brought in, including hosting their own local pro day, which we'll get more into. And then, of course, we got some more. I'm actually going to go over my ranking potential first round selections for the Washington Commanders towards the end of this episode. And of course, after that, we're going to go back to the weekly mock draft where I have a pretty spicy trade that went down during this week's weekly mock draft. So those are going to be the topics for this week's episode. We'll just start things right off. Official bids being placed on the Washington Commanders, two different groups. Stevie A, as they call him, Steve Apostolopoulos, and the Josh Harris group, both of them placing $6 billion bids, or bids at least worth $6 billion, and meeting that Dan Snyder mark. Again, Snyder saying that he wants the team to be sold for the asking price was $6 billion. Steve Apostolopoulos and Josh Harris now have both reached that $6 billion mark. I believe Josh Harris is the only group of the two that has the amount of money now to purchase the team and meet all the requirements from the NFL. I don't know what that means for Steve Apostolopoulos and his group, but Josh Harris right now and that group seems to be the front runner. We've got Magic Johnson coming out and tweeting, saying public comments on Good Morning America and the Today Show about him potentially buying the Washington Commanders. I'm going to read the quote right here. I believe this was from the Today Show, or maybe this was from a tweet, but yeah, this was from the Today Show, I think, or Good Morning America. He said, "Our bid is in. We hope that we win. We will see what happens with Mr. Snyder making that decision. I got a ring in every sport, but I need a Super Bowl ring. I would love to be the owner of the Commanders." Now, he came out on a public news show during the morning in Times Square, came out and said it in front of the entire world, the entire country, all of the NFL. I mean, I wanted Jeff Bezos for a long time to be the Washington owner because I felt like he had the most amount of money. He's going to splurge on free agents. He's going to splurge on giving new contracts, new expensive contracts to pretty much any player that deserves it. But man, Magic Johnson saying these comments got me so excited. Josh Harris and that group, of course, before Magic Johnson joined that group, I was a little bit worrisome. I didn't really know if I don't think I really wanted them over Jeff Bezos. But now since Magic Johnson joined, we see those tweets that Magic Johnson has about the Los Angeles Lakers and other stuff that's happening in the NBA that I think are super funny because he's pretty much stating the obvious in his tweets after every game and stuff. So I think that'd be super funny if that happened after every Commanders game, because I'd be really interested to hear what he has to say. So Magic Johnson, Josh Harris, and Mitchell Rales, I believe, or are going to be the or is it Mitchell Rales? I think it's Mitchell Rales or Tim Rales. I mean, I get those two mixed up all the time, but those are looking like to be the front runners. Jeff Bezos. Okay, so this is what happened. Dan Snyder recently, he didn't publicly say, but he's like told some reporters that to spread the message that Dan Snyder is still waiting for a bid from a guy like Jeff Bezos he knows that Jeff Bezos can bid way more than $6 billion for this team. And so that's the thing that's really being the holdup right now. How long will Dan Snyder wait for a Jeff Bezos bid or a bid from a different billionaire that will possibly exceed over $6 billion or exceed over the Josh Harris or Steve Apostolopoulos bid? So that is something also to mention. Steve Apostolopoulos, he actually, according to Rick Snyder's Washington, he actually came to HQ in Ashburn a few days ago, I believe, or he came for another visit recently. So that is something to look at as well. And one more thing, Ron Rivera before the back to Stevie A. So Apostolopoulos also is actually bidding right now on multiple other professional sports teams. I don't remember which sports teams it was. I think maybe the Philadelphia Flyers. There was an NHL team in there. I think it was the Flyers. I could be a little bit wrong on that one. But Steve Apostolopoulos, his money is spread out right now very thin, which is something to keep an eye on because he's also after 2 or 3, I believe, other major franchises in other major leagues. So that is something to keep an eye on. And back to the thing I was going to say with Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera came out and said the new owner will have to believe in what I'm talking about. And I'm going to tell you right now, Ron Rivera, no, he doesn't. No, he doesn't, because he has the power to fire you, and you can't really do anything about it. A new owner comes in. There's been rumors about possibly when a new owner comes in, immediately firing Ron Rivera. So, I mean, again, I don't think at this point in time, firing Ron Rivera immediately will be the move. I guess in that case, we fire Rivera, and then if I guess they're going off of what the fans want, you make Eric Bieniemy the head coach. I'm not really sure what we're going to do there, but Ron Rivera, I think he's definitely going to be the head coach, at least for this upcoming year, coming into week 1 and for the first few weeks of this season, at least. I don't see the new owner firing him. There's been a lot of, I'm going to talk about probably next week's episode more, a lot of rumors about a potential rebrand for the Washington Commanders. Not even a year, just over actually, a year after becoming the Washington Commanders. It would be the third rebrand in 4 years, 3 years, probably 4 years though for the third rebrand. So that is a potential rumor that has definitely kind of escalated throughout Commanders Twitter recently. So that is something to keep an eye on. I don't think it'll happen. And I think fans really, I'm just going to say the gist of it right now. I think fans really won't be happy if it's something that's not Red Wolves, then I don't think fans will be happy. I think a lot of fans set their names really on Red Wolves. It wasn't Red Wolves. And well, here we are now. And a lot of fans are pretty mad about it. So I'm going to get more into that a little bit later, probably next week's episode. But yeah, that'll be it for the official bids being placed on the Washington Commanders. There's been 2 of them so far. Will Jeff Bezos make a bid? We'll have to wait and see. Play that waiting game. The draft is 3 weeks away. More league meetings in March, I believe, not in March, in May, are about a month away. And also that May 12th deadline that we have a big eye on right now. Team most likely will be sold by that May 12th deadline, because I talked about before, that's when all the signing bonuses for guys like Jacoby Brissett, Deron Payne's extension, Andrew Wiley, Nick Gates. That's where the signing bonuses for all those guys kind of like hits the checkbooks is May 12th. So that is a big day right there. So yeah, that'll be it for the official bids. And now we got to move on here. Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, of course, has had a very complicated relationship with Dan Snyder in the past. Really, they were best buds. He was really one of the main reasons why that Dan Snyder was still owned the Washington Commanders like 4 years ago. And it really seems here in the last 2 years, Jerry Jones has really turned on Dan Snyder, and that is something to really keep an eye on. Jerry Jones publicly said at the NFL league meetings that he wants the Mary Jo White report. I talked about it in, I believe, the episode 2 weeks ago. He wants the Mary Jo White report released, and he also claims that he knows everything that's in the Mary Jo White report. He said that during the NFL league meetings, which happened in Arizona. So that was something to take a note on. Roger Goodell, who also spoke at the NFL league meetings during his annual presser or whatever at the league meetings the following day, I believe, said that it is impossible to know what the findings of the investigation is yet because it hasn't been released. Again, Roger Goodell, he knows what the investigation and the results of the investigation and the findings of the investigation are, because he was the one that hired Mary Jo White to do this case for the NFL. So Goodell knows what's in it, but no one else supposedly, or Goodell claims no one else supposedly knows what's in this investigation. But Jerry Jones saying that he does, I'm going to be on Jerry Jones' side here. I think Jerry Jones has a lot of sources. I think he's more power. I think he's the most powerful man in the NFL. I think he's more powerful than Roger Goodell. I think he knows more than Roger Goodell. So I think Jerry Jones definitely knows something that he wants it to be released. Now, will this be good for Dan Snyder? Is he on Dan Snyder's side, or is he not on Dan Snyder's side? We'll have to wait and see. But if I didn't make a guess, I would say he's not, because there's really been a lot of things pointing towards Jerry Jones saying that he does not want Dan Snyder to be an owner anymore. I've talked about the Colts owner as well, Jim Irsay. He's really been the only owner so far that's publicly come out and said that he wants the Commanders to be sold. Again, I don't think there's really been any other owner that's publicly come out and said it. He said it during the league meetings he said it during some meetings. It might have been at the Super Bowl week. I forgot when it was. It might have been. It was Commanders and Colts that week in Indianapolis when I think he said it the first time, and that's when things really started to take a downward turn for Daniel Snyder. So those are the comments on that Jerry Jones said about Daniel Snyder. One of his good time friends is no longer one of his friends. So yeah, that's it for pretty much the stuff on Dan Snyder for this week, because I'm just going to put that all aside. That was a lot of stuff that happened to him over the last 2 weeks. Now let's get actually onto the football field and talk about the football game itself. We've got top 30 visits happening over the course. It's been happening over the last 2-3 weeks, and it'll happen all the way up until I believe the week before the draft, maybe a little bit into draft week itself. But top 30 visits, if you don't know already, is each team is allowed to bring in 30 potential draft prospects. It's not their top 30 that are physically on their big board as their top 30 players, but it's like they're allowed to bring in 30 players or 30 prospects and talk to them and interview them and work them out. And so there's been a lot. I'm not going to get into every single one of them because there's been way too many to count. I'll probably get into it when all 30 of them actually happen for the Commanders. But here are some of the big names that have already happened or that are expected to happen this week. First one, Tennessee quarterback Hendon Hooker. There's been a lot of talk about him recently, potentially being a first-round draft pick. This, again, shocked me. I don't think Washington should draft him in the first round. I don't think Washington should draft him in the second round. We have bigger needs right now than at the quarterback position, which is a little bit kind of crazy to say. But with a guy like Sam Howell Sam Howell once more was the projected number 1 overall pick before his senior year in college. So Hendon Hooker is a guy that's definitely been mentioned, possible connection to the Washington Commanders. I know there's also been possible connections to him in the Minnesota Vikings, Seattle Seahawks as well. So that is a name to watch. Joey Porter Jr., the cornerback out of Penn State. Still have not gotten a chance to watch him yet, but from what I'm hearing, I think he's going to be my cornerback 2 behind Christian Gonzalez, and then Devin Witherspoon will be after that. So Joey Porter Jr. would love to have him in Washington at pick number 16. I've drafted this guy a lot as a day 3 sleeper. Ventrell Miller, the linebacker out of Florida. Last year, a guy before the draft that I hyped up a lot was Dameon Pierce, the running back out of Florida. And look what he did last year. And then the year before that, I had hyped up a lot from Florida was Evan McPherson. And Evan McPherson went on to basically kick the Bengals all the way into the Super Bowl. So I think my Florida guy this year will probably be Ventrell Miller. I like him a lot. Yeah, he's had some injury issues in the past. He's on the older side. But again, a linebacker for Washington is what we really need. He's a great tackler. Rarely misses tackles. A great player overall. Needs some working coverage a little bit, but a guy overall that I really like. Another guy that was on a top 30 visit to Washington. I kind of mentioned him already a little bit, but Devin Witherspoon, the cornerback out of Illinois. Also, I believe his other guy across from him at Illinois, the other corner, I forgot his name right now, but he also was on a top 30 visit in Washington. So Washington really prioritizing the defensive back position. Brian Branch, the safety and the nickel possible guy or possible Buffalo nickel role, as a guy like Landon Collins played at one point for the Washington Commanders back in 2021. He was also on a top 30 visit. DJ Turner, the Michigan cornerback, was also on a top 30 visit to Washington. So you can really tell Washington is prioritizing that cornerback position. We saw Washington last year trade down out of the 11th spot down to number 16. They sit at 16 this year. Will they possibly trade up for a guy like Joey Porter Jr., Christian Gonzalez, Devin Witherspoon? I think they'll definitely have to trade up pretty far if they want a guy like Christian Gonzalez, as I think Gonzalez to Atlanta at number 7 is probably where he will go. If not, I don't see him falling out of the top 8 or 9. So if they want Christian Gonzalez, who is my cornerback 1 in this draft, they're going to have to trade up into the top 10 and pretty far into the top 10. But if you want a guy like Devin Witherspoon or Joey Porter Jr., trading maybe up, we trade back from 11 to 16 last year, maybe trading up from 16 to 11 this year is a possible thing that we could do. I believe with the 11th overall pick, it's the Tennessee Titans. I could be wrong this year, but I think it's the Tennessee Titans at 11. So that is something to keep an eye on. And so those are the top 30 visits so far. Again, many more others that have happened. I just not getting to them. But one of the big things I wanted to talk about was the Commanders' local pro day, which is happening on April 11th, which I believe is the day that this episode comes out on that Tuesday. So far, there's been two guys that have been confirmed to be at this local pro day. It was Utah State wide receiver Brian Cobbs and Bowie State edge rusher Joshua Pryor. Again, these are two guys that will probably be day 3 picks, if at all. And again, I looked at the list last year, and the last year for when Washington had their local pro day, they didn't draft a single player that went on that local pro day. So a lot of the local pro day people that Washington is bringing in is day 3 picks that they might select if there's if they go undrafted, might pick up. But yeah, besides that, they didn't draft anyone from the local pro day last year. And so far, no really big names at this year's local pro day, as they like to have a lot of the bigger names one-on-one attention with guys like Joey Porter Jr., Devin Witherspoon, Hendon Hooker, DJ Turner, and those guys. All right, here, moving on next. Here is my ranking for potential first-round selections for the Washington Commanders at pick number 16. These are my top 10, basically. We'll start at number 10, right into it. We're going to go with the quarterback out of Florida, my guy, Anthony Richardson. He's at number 10 for me. Again, the quarterback position, not the craziest of needs right now for Washington. I'm fine with Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett being our two guys. Anthony Richardson has the ceiling of being the number one, the best quarterback in the NFL, 1A, 1B with Patrick Mahomes. But it's not our position. If we want to win soon, we need a starting cornerback, or we need a offensive tackle or offensive lineman boost, or a new tight end or someone like that. Quarterback, not the position we really need right now, but I have him at number 10. I, again, don't think he's going to fall this far either. I think he's going to go in the top 5. But if he does somehow fall this far, Anthony Richardson would be at number 10. And for a guy like Will Levis, who might actually fall out of the top 10, I wouldn't even draft him in the first round. I have a second-round grade on him. And if we're looking for a project quarterback, I go Anthony Richardson. Will Levis, there's really no point, in my opinion, besides if a different team in a different scenario right now. But really, Sam Howell and Will Levis, there's not that much of a difference there that I would send away a first-round pick for Will Levis. So Richardson is my number 10. Number 9 is Emmanuel Forbes, the cornerback out of, I believe, the cornerback out of Mississippi State. So Forbes, this guy is a very interesting guy. He is 6 feet tall. He is also 166 pounds. So that is something that's a little bit interesting. He is closer to me in weight than he is to Bryce Young. That is something to keep an eye on. Well, that's something to notice. So that's a little bit interesting. I have Forbes at 9. He's an absolute ball hawk at Mississippi State. Had a bunch of interceptions this year. But I have him at number 9. Number 8 is another cornerback. It's Deonte Banks, the cornerback out of Maryland. Haven't watched him yet, but I'm hearing great things from him. Again, I feel like I've heard great things about him. I've heard not so great things about him. So we'll have to wait and see. I have him at number 8. And then at number 7, I have two guys. And this was really kind of a tie for me, so that's why I'm kind of putting them together. And they both play the same position. It's Matthew Mayer and Dalton Kincaid. Basically, a tight end at number 16. I don't really want a tight end. Great. Logan Thomas, he needs to get out of here. Should have been cut 2 months ago. But drafting a tight end with high capital, again, we had Ryan Fowler on a few months ago, and he was talking about how don't expect Washington to draft a tight end with a very valuable draft pick in a first round, second round, third round. And then if we draft one in the third round or fourth and fifth, we have young guys already that Washington really likes. John Bates, Cole Turner, possibly Amari Rogers as well, who had a pretty solid year last year. So we'll just have to wait and see there. I don't expect him to draft a tight end with a valuable position. If we do, I want Darnell Washington in the second round, but I don't think he's gonna be there in the second round. So those would be my guys at number 7. Number 6, I have another Florida player. It's O'Cyrus Torrence, the offensive guard. Can play center a little bit, but pretty much the guard out of Florida. Played at Louisiana, followed Billy Napier to Florida. I have him at number 6 here. Again, this wouldn't be a bad pick in my opinion at all. But we did bring in we brought in Nick Gates, and then we have Andrew Norwell there. Sam Cosmi will probably move inside with Andrew Wiley playing right tackle. We need some offensive guard play and basically another offensive tackle as well. But again, I'm fine with O'Cyrus Torrence. If we pick him at 16 here, great. Good job. He's really a run game specialist. I don't really know what we're doing if we're drafting another run game specialist at offensive guard when we have Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson on a rookie contract out there. But hey, and Sam Howell who can sling it 60 yards downfield. But hey, that's just me. I have Osiris Torrance at number 6. Wouldn't be ecstatic about it. Wouldn't be sad about it. He's like a good player. He's a first-round talent, in my opinion. So I have him at number 6. At number 5 is another offensive lineman. It's Darnell Wright, the offensive tackle out of Tennessee, who I'm really starting to love as an offensive tackle. So he's probably going to be somewhere in maybe my OT2, OT3, maybe somewhere around there. I'm really starting to love him. Drafting him at number 16. He's really risen up a bunch of people's draft boards recently. 16 would be great. I think I'm going to probably grade him a little bit less than 16, but 16 would be fine. And so, again, selecting him at number 16, he's my 5th ranked player as who I want to get selected in the first round of 16. I'd be pretty happy about it. I wouldn't be, again, ecstatic about it. Wouldn't be sad about it at all. It would be a good pick, in my opinion. And so now we go from good picks to great picks. Anyone here, I'm ecstatic about. At number 4, we've got Devin Witherspoon, the cornerback out of Illinois. This man is locked down. He's the arguable cornerback 1 in this class. I've been hearing some doubts about him recently, which is a little bit questionable. But overall, this would still be a great pick in my opinion. I haven't got a chance to watch him yet, but from what I'm hearing, he has some great instincts, and that is what I want to see in a cornerback, a true cornerback 1 in the NFL. So I have him at number 4. Number 3 will be Peter Skoronski, the offensive tackle out of Northwestern. There have been rumors recently about the Patriots possibly drafting Peter Skoronski early on, which means Washington would not be on the board when Washington picks, but also some teams possibly keeping him at offensive tackle over moving him inside. Skoronski, 6'4", very tiny arm length for an offensive tackle in the NFL, which was something a little bit worrisome in the during college. So that is something to keep an eye on. Again, I would move him inside to left guard and play him over Andrew Norwell if we were to draft him and keep Leno out there at left tackle. But again, I think this is a great pick. I don't think he'll be on the board when we draft, but Skoronski is a pretty solid pick, in my opinion, a pretty great pick. So now moving on to number 2, I got Joey Porter Jr., the cornerback out of Penn State. I talked about him a little bit already as Washington had a top 30 visit with him. Joey Porter Jr., great player, Penn State guy. He can come in. He already knows Jahan Dotson. All right, they were teammates 2 years ago, so knows Jahan Dotson. I think that would be great to see Joey Porter Jr. against Jahan Dotson during one-on-one reps in training camp. I think that'd be super fun to watch. So I have him at number 2, and then at number 1, of course, is probably one of my favorite prospects in this draft. I talked about him so much so far on this podcast. Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback out of Oregon, is an absolute stud. In my opinion, he's going to be the best corner from this class. In my opinion, I think he's going to be one of the best corners in the NFL, probably a top 10, possibly even top 5 cornerback in the NFL at his peak. So Christian Gonzalez is going to be day 1 starter, absolute stud, possible defensive rookie of the year for this upcoming season. So I don't think he's going to fall out of the top 10. I've talked about this before, but if he does, and then we get him at 16, I'd be over the moon. He's my guy right now at 16. If he's there, I want him super badly. So yeah, those are my 10 guys that, or I guess technically 11, but pretty much 10 guys that I would want with the number 16 overall pick, ranking them. So yeah, that's it. Now we got to move on here to the weekly mock draft. All right, here, the weekly mock draft. I just realized this is going a little bit over, so I'm going to quickly go through this. Again, doing this again on PFN because PFF, for some reason, is still paid. You still got to pay for the subscription for the Duo mock draft. So that, pretty disappointing. But again, it was free for like a few hours again, and then it was paid again. I don't even know what's happening with PFF. I used PFN for this one already. So yeah, I talked about there being a pretty blockbuster trade that went down in this one, and I'm just going to say it. The Washington Commanders are trading pick 16 to the Jacksonville Jaguars, along with pick 97, their compensatory pick in the 3rd round, to the Jaguars for pick 24, so moving down 8 spots. We also are getting their 2nd round pick this year, number 56, and a 2024 2nd rounder next year. So those are the draft selection, or those are the trades and the trade picks involved. So we're getting pick 24, 56, and a second rounder next year for pick 16 and 97. I like this trade for Washington. I went ahead and did it. And with the 24th overall pick, I was just talking about him a little bit ago. I'm selecting the offensive tackle out of Tennessee, Darnell Wright, to boost that line. Again, it's a little bit interesting. I've thought about this a little bit. We did get Andrew Wiley to play right tackle. Darnell Wright is a right tackle. So what will Washington do? Not my problem. All right? It's not my problem. It's up to Ron Rivera and the offensive line coach and all that. So what I would think that what they do would probably move Andrew Wiley to left tackle. Maybe he can play left tackle, or maybe move Darnell Wright to left tackle. I'm not really sure what they would do, but I could not pass him up here at pick 24. So that's where I selected Darnell Wright. And then moving on to the second round at pick 47, I said this earlier in the episode. If he's there as a tight end, I would select him. I selected Darnell Washington out of Georgia. So two Darnells, but Darnell Wright in the first round, Darnell Washington in the second round. I think, again, don't really know why Logan Thomas is still on my football team. I thought he was going to get cut 2 months ago, but yeah, here we are still. So Darnell Washington, don't know if Washington will spend a premium pick on a tight end, but I would not pass up on Darnell Washington in the second round if I were them. So I went ahead and selected him, as he is just an absolute monster, 6'7", huge guy. We saw him making one-handed catches during the combine. It was great. So that was the first second-round pick. And then the second-round pick that we got from Jacksonville, I selected Emmanuel Forbes, the cornerback out of Mississippi State. So with the first three picks, we went offensive tackle, tight end, and corner. Pretty much got three starters just in the first three picks, which is great. Emmanuel Forbes can probably maybe play the nickel's role, or because we need a nickel. Kendall Full and Benjamin St. Juste on the outside is fine, but I don't want Richard Wildgoose being our nickel cornerback heading into week 1, which I expect he will be, unfortunately. So that's my pick at number 56. And so now we don't have a third round pick. We go straight to the fourth round because we trade away that third round pick to move back in the first round and move up in the second round with Jacksonville. So pick number 118. This guy, a lot of Washington people have been talking about him recently. The Pittsburgh running back, Israel Abanikanda. Again, this guy has super fast speed. I believe 4.28, 4.29. He runs a 4.340. He has that home run speed I've been talking about in the last few episodes that I think Washington should really need in that running back position, because a guy like Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, those aren't going to be guys that are going to be like home run hitters. And I forgot to mention, I think this happened at one point. Washington released J.D. McKissick. I forgot to mention that as well, which is good to mention now because I selected Israel Abanikanda here. But Washington did release J.D. McKissick, and that was something that was a little bit not really shocking to me. McKissick, I mean, he went from almost signing with the Buffalo Bills to signing with Washington a year ago, and then a year with some neck injuries. Not really looking great for his career. We release him. Does not end really well in Washington for him. So Abanikanda to be our third running back over Jonathan Williams. So that is something, or Jared Patterson, Jonathan Williams over there. So that is something to look at in round 4. In round 5, I went ahead and selected a guy before the season was getting some first round hype. Andrew Voorhees, the offensive guard out of USC. We need to boost that offensive line, the interior offensive line I talked about before. And Voorhees is he's an interesting prospect, to say the least. He kind of fell off draft boards a lot, and then he tore his ACL. And then with a torn ACL at the combine, he had the most bench press reps out of any offensive lineman. So that is something to look at. At 150, that's why I selected Andrew Voorhees, potential starter one day once he's healthy from that torn ACL. So that's something to look at. With the round 6 pick, this might come as a shocker. I selected Noah Ruggles, the kicker out of Ohio State. Ruggles, I've talked about Joey Sly a little bit on this podcast. Sly has been a little bit interesting. He kind of struggled toward the end of the season. Don't really know what Washington is going to do with him. Noah Ruggles coming in as maybe a backup kicker, again, selecting a kicker in the 6th round. We've selected a long snapper in the 6th round before, so Again, Washington really prioritizes the special teams for some reason. So Noah Ruggles in the 6th round could be something that I could definitely keep an eye on. Maybe have a kicker battle with him and Joey Sly if they don't like what Joey Sly was doing late in that season last year. So Noah Ruggles in the 6th round, and so now with the first of the 2 7th-round picks. No, sorry, no. This is the other 6th round pick that we have, the one for Tim Settle, that compensatory pick. I selected Shaka Hayward, the linebacker out of Duke. Don't really know much about him, but we need some linebacker depth, and I haven't selected a linebacker yet in this mock draft. And then with the 7th-round pick, I selected another linebacker, this one out of Arkansas, Bumper Pool. He was across from Drew Sanders, who's probably going to be a first-round pick this year, if not first round, early 2nd round. So he was across from him this year at Arkansas. But Bumper Pool, don't really know much about him either. Has a cool name. He's definitely on the all-name team for the upcoming draft prospects. But Shaka Hayward, Bumper Pool, maybe a new linebacker duo in Washington with those 6th and 7th round picks. So yeah, that'll be it for this week's weekly mock draft. We'll come back next week with another weekly mock draft and another episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. We are about 3 episodes away, I think, from the NFL draft. 2 episodes away from the NFL draft. So next week, I'm definitely going to be doing my position rankings pretty much for every position, or pretty much talking about every prospect I've scouted. As this year, I was really busy. I only got to like 35, I think, prospects, which is not great. But I'm going to keep on going through some other prospects like Devin Witherspoon, Joey Porter Jr., and putting them on my big board. So that's going to be the plan for next week's episode. And then the week episode after that, we're going to be going through probably a full first-round mock draft with predictions for every team. So that's probably the schedule for the next few weeks. And then after that, the week after that, draft recap, of course, and then maybe one more episode before the season finale. So season 2 of Keeping Up with the Commanders is coming to an end pretty soon. We're about a month away from the end of season 2, which is pretty crazy. This was episode 31 of season 2, which is absolutely wild. So yeah, the season 2 of Keeping Up with the Commanders, I did not realize it's coming to an end pretty fast. But yeah, that'll be it for this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. See you guys in the next one. Peace.